Ladies and gentlemen, this is the 71st episode of Concerned Dabs podcast. I'm your host, Katie M. Kane. Our guest tonight, ladies and gentlemen, she is the owner of Chapters Alumni. It's a booking company out of Portland, Oregon. She is doing super huge, super major things in the music industry as far as, dude, like it's more than just booking. And I know this girl from way back. Tell the story later, but I'm super proud of her, super duper proud of her, just because I know her from way back and she's making big moves. And glad to have her on the show. Her name is Ibeth Hernandez, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey,
Ibeth, are you with us?
I am. What's up? Thank you for having me.
Oh, dude, thanks for coming on the show.
For sure.
Man, can I give a little bit of context of the story on how I know you?
Of course.
Okay, so anybody listening to my podcast might have heard some of my music. I used to, I'm more rock and roll now. I used to rap when I was a kid. Reggaeton at the time. This is around like 04, 05, right? And so I'm a DJ also during this era. And so every time I DJ, it would always be some dope Spanish girls coming up to the booth wanting me to play some reggaeton. You know what I mean? And so I'm just like, I didn't have a lot of it. And so I did it was a Mexican sorority and they gave me like 5 CDs and were like, can you just play this? I was like, yeah, you know what I mean? I'm gonna work some of my shit in, but it was hard for me to pick songs and they were like, it doesn't matter. And I'm like, I don't even know what that means. And it was weird, but it didn't matter. It's like, as long as I played a song off of one of those CDs, it was cracking. And so I'm like, man, I gotta write one of those. And so my first roommate in college is from Pomona, California. His name is Rocky Loma. Shout out to Rock. He helped me write the chorus, and it's a song called "Sta Loca" from the top left corner mixtape. Shout out to Max and Shannon. And Rock helped me write it over the phone, and so I came out to Portland to record it. And I don't want to put you out there too much either, but it's like I had met you before you came through on this studio session because you used to. Before I met certain rappers in Portland that could plug me in, you were the weed, like you had a homie who would bring us nugs at the studio. You know what I mean? So when we got out there for that session, it was like craziness was there at RPMs, and I'm like, dude, we need someone who speaks Spanish to coach me through this. And you were just like, well, fuck, I don't know. I was like, man, what about that Ibeth girl? The girl does this tonight, and he's like, yeah, she does speak Spanish. I'm like, man, would she come through? You know what I mean? And he's like, I'll call her, and you did. You came through RPMs, and it just because I had it written down, and I showed you what I had recorded already, and you were like, no, fuck no, you can't say it like that. You got to say it like this. You know what I mean? And it was so awesome to have because I don't want to. I'm not a culture vulture, and I don't want to misrepresent. And I, it was dope to have you there because I wanted Spanish girls to hear that song and feel like, all right, cool. He's at least trying to communicate with us in our language. You know what I mean? So
That's so dope.
Yeah, it felt good. And so that's how I met you or knew you originally from like 15 years ago.
God, forever ago.
Yeah. And so when I moved to Portland in 2010, I started noticing you were making booking agent moves, and then I figured out the name of the company. It was Chapters Alumni, and I did fisheries at first, and then cannabis for a while, and then I just ended up working for Lyft because I made the most money for the least amount of time. And I was working Lyft, and it was like Travis Scott at the Coliseum or something, and
yeah,
I was just like, I saw it said Chapters Alumni presents Travis Scott or something like that on the marquee, and I'm just like, fuck, I know that girl, man. Like, and I dropped off like 5 people, you know what I mean? And it was cracking. And there was a super big lines, and I felt so proud. I'm like, man, that's dope. And that's way before we had the podcast, but it just was like, man, shout out to Ibeth because she's really doing big shit. You know what I mean? And it just meant a lot to me because you showed up for us when we just needed someone to help, and
that's how you gotta do it.
Yeah.
That's how you gotta do it. Yeah. No, I appreciate that so much. That was actually probably the biggest show we've done in Portland. It was at the Memorial Coliseum. It was sold out. It was Travis Scott. And that was actually the show where he brought out Drake.
Dude.
So like Drake showed up. Like we were like, what? Like even as organizers, that like kind of threw us off. We didn't find out till like earlier that day that Drake was gonna come through. It was crazy, but it was a pretty memorable show for sure.
No doubt, man. Like that's awesome, man. Like it's super impressive. You know what I mean? And super happy about the shit that you're doing, man. Like it's tough.
Yeah, it's really fun.
And can I I mean, dude, I usually just freestyle the interviews. I have one question at the end that I ask every time, but it's how did you focus in on this on booking? Because I know you've been in contact, like you've got people in your family who make music and stuff too, but what made you focus on creating a booking agent company? When did that start? Like can you tell us a little bit about the history of your organization?
For sure. I think my whole life I've been really into planning events and music. And so I always knew that I wanted to do something that kind of married both of those two things. And so when I was in college, I was on the student government at PCC. And my job was to like oversee all of the student events on campus and manage like a huge budget. And so what I was doing was I was like planning all these rap events and like paying my friends to come perform. So I started to kind of build my network that way. And then
CJ must have got one of those. Yeah.
And so then I started to get a reputation as like the girl who pays rappers, like local rappers, which was kind of unheard of at the time. And so that way, you know, I just made a lot more friends that were doing stuff locally and whatnot. And eventually I met this guy named, his real name is Chris. He's from Seattle. And he was a rapper back then. And we met on social media. We actually met on Black Planet. Neither one of us is Black. He's Asian and I'm Mexican. But we met and just started networking because he was an artist in Seattle. And he was like, yo, like I've been trying to get into Portland shows. Like, how can I get on a bill? Yada, yada, yada. So we just kind of started networking. And this had to be 2004.
Okay.
And then we stayed cool for years. And in 2009, he introduced me to a guy named Jacob, who was from Idaho, but lived in Portland. Jacob was doing a lot of the same things I was doing, but almost on a bigger scale. Like he was bringing artists to town. I remember he brought Cassidy, the rapper Cassidy, to Portland.
Dude, I'm a hustler. I'm a hustler, homie. Yeah.
And so we linked up at that show. That was kind of like our first meeting. And then Chris was like, yo, you and Jacob gotta work together. Like, y'all gotta do some stuff together because y'all both killing it. You know what I'm saying? Like, if y'all teamed up, like, it could be really dope. And this was like the beginning of like that blog rap era with like Wiz Khalifa, Mac Miller, like all those guys, right?
I talked about it like it's the style era. Like, style points were the most important. You had to sound different from everyone else. And since then, everyone sounds the same.
Yeah. So back then that was like such a dope era for hip hop because it was the first time that we were given a new platform other than like radio and CDs to kind of get exposure, right? And so a lot of artists were now popping up on like Two Dope Boys, The Source. I mean, just these hip hop blogs were really kind of putting people on at the time. And so one artist, we were getting a lot of hip hop shows in Portland at the time, but they were all like old school West Coast rappers. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? But the young teenage kids, they wanted to hear the
shit
stuff
I grew up on. But the kids,
exactly, right? So imagine being, you know, a 15-year-old high school kid.
The kids control the traffic.
So they wanted to hear, they don't want to hear
Warren G. I want to hear Warren G, but they're like, who the fuck is Warren G?
Exactly. So Jacob, Chris, and I booked the rapper Currency from New Orleans. And at the time, I was like, isn't he kind of falling off? And everybody was like, no, he's making a comeback, yada, yada, yada. So we were like, all right, whatever. We took a chance. We booked him at the Roseland, which is like the most prominent independent music venue in Portland. And they took a risk with even renting the space to us too, because like they didn't know us. We'd never thrown a show before. We were just like, we're just trying to throw this big ass show. This is our budget, whatever. So they let us do it. And it sold over 800 tickets. And that was huge, right? Like,
was it smoked out? Was it smoked out?
I feel like it was like pretty smoked out, even though you're not supposed to smoke. I mean, come on, it's Currency. Like he is that guy.
It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen, man.
So after that, like the venue called us in for a meeting and they were just kind of like, how did you guys know that this show would do well? And we were like, well, we're kind of keeping an eye on the vlogs and kind of got our ear to the street, listening to what the kids want to say. And so they were like, all right, bet. So let's partner up and do another show. And we partnered up and did another show. And then the rest is kind of history.
What was the next one?
I want to say that it was Mac Miller. It was the first Mac Miller tour that he did.
R.I.P. Mac, man.
R.I.P. man. Yeah. And then then a few months later, we brought out J. Cole. And that was his very first tour. And that show was like on Thanksgiving.
What project was out right then? What was the shit he performed?
God, so whatever was his first single and stuff, that's what it was, because it was sponsored by BET and it was his very first tour ever. And it was him and the singer K. Michelle, and it was on Thanksgiving, and it sold out. We were like, nobody's gonna come. It's Thanksgiving. It's in the evening. Sold out. And then after that, we booked another really legendary show that December, the month after, which was the Smokers Club tour. And that was, God, I can't even remember everybody, but it was Currency. It was Nipsey Hussle. It was Dom Kennedy. It was so many guys from the South. Like, I can't even tell you all the people that were on it, but it was like pretty legendary and pretty epic. And after that, that kind of solidified our place in the scene in Portland and in the Northwest, really. We have people coming from Seattle. We have people coming from like Eastern Oregon, Eugene, Corvallis.
Yeah, bro. Especially when you see a flyer with all those names on it. It's like, nah, it's like we got to pull out the stash and go and rep. Because that's what I always loved about Oregon too, is the cannabis culture is real. It's a way of life. And so it seemed like at rap shows, dude, the smell in the air that's not the smell at the dispensary. You know what I mean? It's like everybody's got their fucking biggest, best shit. And it like, whoa, like you don't even have to bring weed and you'll be high in the crowd. You know what I mean? So I always thought that was dope. And everybody does show up for something that's tight.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's cool that you're doing tight shit, Ibeth. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that was really fun. And so basically from there, we've continued to do shows to this day. I mean, if it weren't for COVID, we'd still be putting on shows right now. But we've grown a lot. We expanded into doing things nationally. We booked a bunch of tours across the country, over 30 city tours. We've brought in, every hip hop artist you can think of to Portland in the Northwest. We've partnered up with other companies, like small independent companies across the country, to do some really cool stuff. So
yeah,
it's been nice.
Yeah, that was a question. Maybe you know, maybe you don't. But like Drake, can you hear us? Okay.
Hello.
Yeah, can you hear us? You cannot hear us. Okay, we can hear you. Did your headphone cord disconnect or something? Can you hear it? Can you hear us now?
Yeah, I think my
okay. Oh, bummer.
Okay, I'm gonna put him back into the charger and then.
Yeah, it's cool. We can deal with the echo.
Is it bad on your end?
No, it's not too bad. It's just we can hear just the ambient sound in your crib a little bit. So just leave them on the charger for like 10 minutes. At 8:30. How about at 8:30? We'll plug them back in and see how long they
work. Because I'm just gonna connect it to the Bluetooth.
Okay.
Tell me if this works.
Okay. Check 1, check 2. Can you hear us, Ibeth?
Hello.
Can you hear us, Ibeth? We can hear you. You can hear her? You can hear us? Okay, we can hear you.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah. Okay, so this is a question I had. Maybe you know, maybe you don't. But I know when you said Drake came through for that Travis Scott show, like did he do a beer with Breakside Brewery? Like I feel like I read that somewhere online, and when I was driving Lyft, right, I would always try and hit Plaid Pantry before 2, so when I got off at 3, I could get home and sip a little bit before I try and go to sleep. But there was this from Breakside Brewery. It was like a salted caramel stout beer, and they didn't have it in sixers. They just had it in those tall beers. And the Plaid on Burnside right down there by the river, it sold out so fast. And so I'd have to look in other parts of the city. But I read somewhere that he was responsible for that collaboration because it was Breakside and then what's it, Salt and Straw? That's the ice
Oh
cream
yeah,
place.
that's the ice cream place.
Yeah, it was those two companies collaborating on that beer, and it was fucking fire, yo. You know what I mean? So
Wow.
yeah, if you run into that guy and
I'll
like
find
ask,
out.
yeah, and because fuck, dude, if they promoted that a little, because that was my, I haven't, because I like stout beers, man. It's I only need to
That's
drink two.
like such a random thing for Drake to do, but I mean, it's possible. Shit, you never know.
Yeah, because I like stout beers. I only need two of them, and you know, like it's when they taste good like that, it's like
Mm.
um that was another thing. I talked to you. Can I change the direction just a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so I was talking to you earlier this week, and I asked you if it was okay if I asked this question, but I remember you started following a new religion, you know what I mean, and it was like super public on your social media and everything too, and I just thought that was dope because I mean it's been a long time since that happened, but
Mhm.
I'm asking about because people, I switched genres, right, and people still are like, why the fuck did you do that, you know what I mean? I'm like,
Mhm.
bro, because that's what I want to do, that's what I
Yeah.
believe in, and that's what I enjoy, and so I'm not trying to speak for you, but I just wanted to ask the question in a
Yeah.
positive way, you know what I mean?
You're right. I grew up Roman Catholic, like most Latinos around the world. And
Yep.
I would say probably in my late teens, I kind of started falling out of love with that religion. Just because
Yeah.
there were a lot of like scandals in the news about, like, Catholic priests like touching little boys and all the sex abuse allegations that were coming out. Like, that just really turned me away from the church. But I always
Yep.
had a really strong belief in God, and I always prayed, and I always wanted a connection to like a higher power, but I just didn't feel like that was right for me. And so
Yeah.
I just kind of started doing my research on different religions. I read up on different stuff. I watched a ton of videos. I would ask people whenever I could. And then I started hanging out with a friend that I had met in high school, and I had lost contact with him for a long time. And so when we reconnected, he was Muslim, his parents are Muslim. And it was cool because every time we'd be hanging out, he'd be like, "Oh, excuse me a minute. I've got to go pray. I'll be right back." And then,
Tight.
like, later
Yeah,
on in
it's
the
like,
day, he'd be like, "Oh, I'll be right back. I gotta go pray." So I was like, "Damn, like, this dude is hella
it's
religious. Like, what is
dude,
going
yeah.
on?"
Is it 5 times a day? Because
Yes.
dude, I'm just curious because my second roommate in college was the Korean. He's a rapper, and
Hmm.
his father was Muslim, and so my experience with that was I would come home from work and I'd have a bottle, and he'd be like, "No, I'm not drinking tonight," and I'd be like, "The fuck, bro? I got E&J for you. I bought you a bottle, even. You know what I mean?" And he's
Yeah.
just like, it was some sort. I don't know what the fast was, but he's like,
Ramadan.
no, yeah. And so he's like, I'm fasting until, I'm like, you're not
Hmm.
gonna eat nothing or drink nothing. He's like, no, not until
Hmm.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
And it was discipline. You know what I mean? And I would just sit there like, huh, because I'm just a Indian from the res. You know what I mean? He's a black dude originally from Detroit, but grew up in Tacoma in high school. So it just for me, I'm just like asking questions, curious.
Yeah.
So if I'm sound like a dipshit or a dummy, I'm
No,
sorry,
not
but
at all. Not at all.
it
I love
is.
talking about this.
It is 5 times a day that you pray.
Yep. So
Okay.
we pray 5 times a day. And when we fast for 30 days during the month of Ramadan. And it's
Okay.
basically fasting from sun up to sundown. So that's, 4 in the morning till about 8:30 p.m. or so, depending on the time of the year. But no
Okay.
water, no food until sundown. And then when sun comes down, you break fast with your family, and there's a ton of food, and everybody, kind of comes together. It's actually really dope. A lot of people focus a lot of their questions and energy around, like, oh my God, you guys can't eat anything for like all day. But to be
That's
honest,
not a
like,
big deal.
it's
That's
not a
not a
big
big
deal.
deal.
And like,
Yeah.
science will tell you today that that's actually super healthy for you, for your body to take a
Hell
break
yeah.
from having to digest. It's super healthy. It actually boosts your immune system, like all types of benefits,
Yeah.
like health benefits for that. But
I
additionally,
learned a lot. Yeah, in Portland, I learned a lot just from
about that
being
stuff.
there. Right? Yeah, you
Yeah.
know.
I mean, and it's
It's
also
big in
just
the
like
community.
it's an opportunity to disconnect from all of the other things because it's not just about fasting from food. It's really about fasting from things that are distractions and getting back focused on your connection to God and your connection to yourself. And, a lot of people set goals for things they want to accomplish during that month, whether it's, reading the Quran, memorizing more of the Quran, you know what I'm saying? Giving charity is super important, a very important thing you're supposed to do during that time. Um,
Yeah, and
just
that's
so
one
many
thing
benefits.
I wanna commend you for that too, because I know you don't publicly post all of the shit that you do to help the community. It's when you do post, it's you're asking for help from other people who can contribute to the cause. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And I think that's dope too, because a lot of people it kind of feeds their ego, and
Mhm.
that's it doesn't feel like that's what you're doing it for because it's not. I don't see about it unless you're really like, yo, if you guys want to bring through some water, or
Yeah.
it's like, hey man, if you haven't worked in a couple weeks and you need a package of food, drive through this school. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
that's dope, you Beth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, it's a hard time right now. A lot of people are going through it. My own family has had a lot of loss of wages and things like that. And so I think it's super important that we all kind of stick together right now and do as much as we can for each other. And we don't always have to boast about it. We don't always have to, go public with it. I think it's more sincere when it's, kind of done behind the scenes, but to each their own.
Yeah, no doubt. Help is help, but
Mm.
like do it for the right reasons is my message, I guess. Um, so like just circling a little bit back to the religion question, like
Mhm.
what did your family like was because I there's only certain family members that really accept me, right?
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And the ones that don't, I don't communicate with, and it's
Mhm.
like if I have to be in the same room with them, I acknowledge them, and that's it.
Yeah.
Like otherwise, So, I mean, was there any of that with your fan? Like, was there anybody that was super unaccepting, or like, and what's it like now? Because it's like that's the thing too is everybody's
Mhm.
like, oh, it's just a phase, and it's like, no, it's not. I'm still this guy. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like
Oh
I'm still,
yeah.
I believe in what I believe in.
My parents were it was weird because like I kind of phased into it. Like first I stopped drinking. No. First I stopped drinking in 2009. Then I stopped eating pork and then I stopped eating meat altogether. And then I started covering before I even took my shahada and became Muslim. I started covering my hair. And then I remember one day coming home to my parents' house with my hair wrapped up and I was like, "Hey, mom, dad, so I just converted to Islam." And they were just kind of like, okay. My
Whatever.
my mom said something really funny. She was like, "Well, just try it out for a little while, and if you don't like it, you can just come back." But they were never like,
It's okay, baby. It's okay, baby. We
"Yeah,
still love you.
we'll take you
Moms are
back.
the best.
We'll take you
Moms are the best.
back."
Yeah.
No, but now, and they were never like openly against it. I think they kind of had a lot of questions, and they kind of wondered how that even came to be. But they never disown me or anything like that. And if anything, like it made them a lot more curious. And now they're super supportive of it. My mom always cooks these big meals during Ramadan when it's time to break fast. And, they ask a ton of
Awesome.
questions and
Does she cook them? She cooks them without meat too.
without meat or with like
With
halal meat, like kosher meat, she'll cook
oh
them.
yeah, man. Can you
Yeah.
tell me about that too? Because I like,
Yeah.
dude, I see that at stores that says halal meat, and I'm like,
Uh-huh.
I've had guys in my car when I was driving Lyft who were Muslim, and I'm like, dude, call me I'm an Indian from the red. Like, man, what does halal mean? Like,
Yeah,
can you tell me about that? Can
for
you give me
sure.
your because it's they slaughter it like in an like they pray and
Mhm.
blindfolded like they try to make it the least because that's one thing I could tell you too is as a hunter, gatherer, fisherman, if you shoot an elk or a deer and it fucking runs for a mile or two and then drops, the meat doesn't taste as good as if you just
Oh.
fucking shot it in the neck and dropped it. Like that, the acid that gets into its muscles when it's stressed out and it's fucking running as hard as it can, like it makes it taste different, dude. Like it totally does.
Mm.
I feel like when people bitch about that gamey taste, that's what it is. You know what I mean? Because
Mhm.
otherwise, if you just got some regular elk burger, you can't tell the fucking difference, man.
Mhm.
We'll give you a side by side test between this and something from Red Robin, and you'll be like, the elk burger tastes better.
Yeah.
But I feel like that, and I don't want to interrupt or put that into part of the story. But when I hear about halal, I'm like, man, that they're trying not to
There's
let
truth
that
though.
happen too. Yeah, it's
Exactly.
like,
So there is truth
and
to
it's
that, right?
yeah.
Because what happens is, so
So
yeah, in order you when you kill the animal, it is believed that when you go out to the farm or wherever your animals are and you're picking out the animal to slaughter, like you'll see that the animal is submitting, like the animal is willingly coming to you to die. And so they pray
yeah,
over the animal and they slice just a little slice across the neck in a way that is like as painless as possible, pretty much, so that
okay,
the animal is
yeah,
not off running around like you said. um
yeah,
yeah, so they slaughter the animal that way, they pray over it, and then that meat is then okay for you to eat. And so it's believed that we can eat meat that is preyed upon by Muslims or by what they call people of the book. So if it was like
okay,
Christian people, Jewish people, we could eat their meat
yeah, like
also. But not, if we don't
yeah,
know what they are, then we can't really eat it. You know what
okay.
I'm saying?
So is the term halal somewhat comparable or relatable to like kosher in
Yeah,
Jewish
it's the
culture, I
it's the
guess? Oh,
same thing. It's just one's in Arabic and one's in Hebrew. So halal is the Arabic,
ah,
kosher is the Hebrew for the most part. I mean, I think with kosher stuff, there's a few more like rules and regulations around what makes a meal kosher or what makes food kosher, but I think the meat portion at least is very similar. Yeah.
okay, dope.
So
Like, man,
I
thank
can go to
you.
a store and buy kosher meat that says kosher and I could still eat that.
Okay, dope. Man, thanks for the education, man. Because
Mhm.
you know, like you can read certain shit online, but I
Mhm.
like talking to people,
Yeah.
man. You know, like
Yeah.
that's why I enjoy my podcast so much because it's sometimes I have my friends, you know, that I talk to all the time on here because I know
Mhm.
I can talk to them for an hour, but it's dope to see someone I haven't talked to in a long time and have them like have them answer questions honestly about because
Yeah.
my curiosity runs deep. You know what I mean? I'm just like,
Mhm.
you know, like man, maybe I'm gonna talk to her one day and see
No,
what's
that's
up.
dope. I love
So,
talking about stuff. I love talking to people.
yeah,
I miss
yeah,
that human connection right now since we've been in like quarantine. Like
yes,
it's already like awkward enough and hard enough as an adult to like meet people when you're an adult because like where do you meet people? Where do you make new friends? You know what I'm saying? And now
yeah,
it's like,
hell
oh, we're
yeah,
also in quarantine. Like, I'm never gonna meet anybody new. I'm never gonna make new friends. I'm never gonna meet interesting people. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's such that.
yeah. Because and that's one thing I drove an electric car in Portland from
Mm.
2015 until I got rear-ended in almost 3 years. In
Oh
2017
man.
December, I got rear-ended. They totaled it. But
Oh no.
dude, the people you meet at the charging stations are so fucking cool and interesting,
That's
dude. Like
dope.
I just met like so many friends. Like there's one
Yeah.
buddy I have. His name's Brent Hasty, and he makes pellet stoves. He welds them, and he makes them in such a way so that it fits in the if it fits it ships box. You know what I
Okay.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So because that shit's heavy as fuck. You know what I mean? It's made out of iron, but it'll heat your home no matter where you're at. You can
That's
it's a
dope.
real easy solution to heat your home for cheap, and he sells them for a fair price for cheap, and the shipping is there. And so I was like, dude, hella dope idea. But he moved to Finland, so he's in Finland now doing the same hustle, and it's just cool to see him post about he'll post pictures of the grocery store and what's available out there and some of the stuff they cook, and it just it's so cool to me because I would have never have met that guy or
Yeah.
talked to him at all if I wasn't sitting there parked next to him charging my car like he was. And then with him, I jumped out with a blunt. You know what I mean? And it's like I got 30 minutes to wait, and he's like, "What's up with that?" I was like, "You smoke?" He's like, "Yeah," like because he looked like just a square bear white boy to me. You know what I mean? So I'm like, "Baby, eat this shit," you know. You make like lifelong friends through
That's so
situations
dope.
like that. So
Yeah.
that's one suggestion I could give you, Ibeth, is roll electric. You know what I mean? Because
I'm trying. I wish I could afford a
you'll
Tesla.
meet some characters. Well, dude, you could get like a used Nissan Leaf that's, will go 65, 70 miles on a charge for like $5K.
I wanted
But
what's it called? What's the really popular one?
Nissan Leaf?
No, what's the main one that came out first?
The Tesla?
No, it wasn't the Tesla.
Well, because the main one I would suggest to you. Oh, the Prius. That's a hybrid, though.
So
it's a hybrid. Don't do that. Don't do that. Just go all the way electric.
In 2014, I was like, I'm getting a Prius, and I went to the car dealership, and I walked out with a BMW. So I don't know how that happened, but I still want an electric car so bad.
What the one I would refer you to is the Kona, Hyundai Kona. They make an electric one, and it goes 250 miles on a full charge.
Dope.
So like, dude, it's like a little SUV. It's butter. That's the one I want.
Cool.
I feel like after this year, there's gonna be some people who leased it 2 years ago who are returning it for a new one, and I want one of those because they're like 35, 36 new or something. I want to spend that on a car, man.
Hey, that's still better than a Tesla. Teslas are so expensive.
Yeah, dude. Even aftermarket, like those things maintain their value. You know what I mean? Like you can't even find a used one for that cheap. So shout out to Elon Musk for making such a dope product.
He's just making so much money. It makes me sick.
The thing that I talked about Keegan Smith with this on the show that I think is cool about him is everything, all of his technology, it's patented, but the patent is open, and the blueprints for everything are available online. So if you're into that and you want to make something similar, you can use it for free without paying him or his company, So I'm like, dude, it's like if a rapper went diamond for 10 albums and said, you guys can sample all my shit or do whatever the fuck you want with it and not pay me. Like,
that would be sick.
I'd be like, dude, yeah. I'm like, no way, really? Like,
I mean, the cool thing about Elon Musk, and because I read up on like a lot of science stuff, I love science, but people always talk about him like a mad scientist, right? Like, you don't know, it's too early in his career for us to know if he's the good guy or the bad guy. And that's like super intriguing, right? Like, he's on his whole like artificial intelligence tip where he's just like put out an ad and he's just like, I don't care if you dropped out of high school, I don't care if you have a college degree, I don't care what you do with your life, as long as you can program and you are into AI, I will give you a job if you can prove that this is what you're into.
Yeah.
But you have to like live it and breathe it and sleep it, because he just wants good people that are into the same ideas that he's into. You know what I mean? And I think that's pretty dope.
I honestly feel like everyone who works there too, even down to the factory workers, they understand who they're working for and what the mission is. And they get all these, like, he's trying to kill unions, and it's like, I support unions, but I understand where he's coming from. It's like, nah, you guys want to bring a bunch of lazy motherfuckers in here and slow down my shit. You know what I mean? And he's like, I have people who aren't lazy motherfuckers, who don't want to slow down for anything, and they're committed, and I pay them well, like they wouldn't work here otherwise. You know what I mean? They don't have to be here. Like, you can't get on my squad unless you're tight. You know what I mean? These people know that, and I'm not squeezing them harder than they need to be squeezed. You know what I mean? So I try to follow those articles in the news too, because I'm like, man, but that's, I've applied for jobs there, and you can't. Like, they have a message on the machine. Like, you just get a generated email response. Everybody wants to work there. And that's why. Because it's like, it's like you're changing the fucking world, man.
Which is
like,
so
you're going to sit
exciting.
here, bitch. I had to work 2 extra hours today, and he didn't pay me overtime because it was fucking 42 hours for that week. Like, I don't think anybody is making that bitch or moan to fucking HR. Because it's like, dude, I'm already getting paid twice what I would be on the regular fucking market. So
absolutely,
those 2 hours counted no matter what, whether it was time and a half or not, Yeah. So I guess can I also I mean, Is it okay to ask about like the new stuff you're doing? Because didn't you say you were doing some cannabis stuff too?
Yeah.
Can you talk about that or the company that you're working with?
I can't really talk about
Um,
the name of the company yet, but
okay.
I am working with
And can you
oh,
can you talk about how you got into that and what sort of stuff you're tackling right now? And I
yeah,
will be back in 1 minute and 30 seconds. Can you please entertain anybody
absolutely.
who's listening? Oh, yeah,
Absolutely.
I'm sorry.
So
A
do you
lot of
think?
fluids, Ibeth. All right, I'll be right back. I love you, girl. Yeah.
So I have a friend named, well, I can't say his name, but we met 10 years ago through doing music stuff together. And he lives outside of Tacoma, and he's been a music guy forever, throwing concerts. He owns a studio, just a bunch of cool music related stuff. But about, I would say maybe 2 years ago, he we flew out to Milwaukee, Wisconsin for a show that he was throwing, and he hired my company to come and produce it. And when we got out there, he had paid for like all this radio advertising, he paid for the club, he paid for everybody's travel, and then the artist decided not to show up. The artist decided to stay in Las Vegas and just kick it for the weekend and didn't show up to his gig. And so the artist manager was like, "Oh, we'll give you all your money back, whatever." But he had already lost a ton of money on all the other extra things that he had paid for, like I said, the radio promotion, etc. Um, so anyway, we took that huge loss together. We had to like face the people from the radio station, the promoters, everybody who was ready to put the show on. So we all came back to the Northwest feeling super defeated. And he was broke for a while. And I remember, I think it took him a few months to like start building up some money. And then he took like 50K and invested it into a farm. At the time, the farm had two owners already, I think. So he was a
Yeah.
third owner of the farm. And
30%.
yeah, and so the farm started
Yeah.
doing pretty well. Like it took a while to like get into the rhythm, whatever, but then they started doing really well. And then eventually I think I'm not sure how, but he became sole owner. So now he's the sole owner of this farm, and it's doing really, really well, making really great money. He's got a great staff. He's got, a really good operation going. And now he's like, okay, so now I have money to do all the things we wanted to do before, music related.
Yeah.
Now we can buy tour buses. We can book our own tours. We can, open a venue if that's what we want. We could throw free events for the community. Like all those cool things we've always wanted to do. Now we have the money. Let's do it. And so that's kind of
Yeah.
how the conversation started. So we've been, meeting online, meeting in person, just trying to brainstorm how we can put it together. But it's looking like, here in a couple months, we're going to be able to roll out some stuff where we're going to start doing some cool marketing events just to promote his brand and involve some artists with it.
And that's in Washington. It's in Washington too, correct?
Yeah, it's in Washington. Yeah.
Dude, you guys come to Spokane, hit me up,
I'm
man.
down. I'm super down.
Dude, can I get like some kind of press pass? Can we bring a camera through as Concerned Dads podcast and
Yeah.
talk, get little 2-minute interviews from folks?
Yeah. Whatever we do, I mean, I'll make sure to include you if we come out your way. We'd have to.
Tight.
Yeah.
Looking out, girl. Because man, I feel like there's I've been to a lot of conferences, right? And they're just everybody's selling something, but there wasn't that many people creating content. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
fuck, dude, there's so many cool characters here, like
Mm-hmm.
there's so many cool clips of everything,
Yeah.
So like that's one thing I want to attack, especially from the cannabis angle, because
Mm-hmm.
there's no coverage in the news at all. That's why we started as Concerned
Mm-hmm.
Dads podcast. We do entertainment too now because more entertainment folks are willing to coordinate and come on the show, but the cannabis folks too, they some of them still understand. It's like, no, dude, they're promoting what we're doing, like,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
it's cool to document it because the news doesn't. They paint the picture they want and get 2 quotes and that's it. And I talk to people for an hour to see what they really think about what's
Mm-hmm.
going on, and that's
And that's,
important to me.
I think, especially with something as, taboo as cannabis, like it's so important to control your own content and to control your own narrative. Like you've got to tell the
Yeah,
story from the inside, because if you let the, mainstream media and even just regular media, if you let them paint the picture of what the cannabis industry and the cannabis world is, it's always going to be wrong. It's always going to be from a bias angle. So people like you, it's
yeah,
super important that you guys that are on the inside, you tell the story yourself in
Yeah.
first person, you know?
Yeah, that's what I dig, man. We got a couple more cannabis people coming up. I podcasted with On One and TJ on Friday night, and their third co-host, his name is Paul, and he works at a dispensary, but he had some fire ass weed, man, some cherry kush. I was like, yo, what is it? He's like, cherry kush. I'm like, who grew this? He's like, Nibiru Gardens. I'm like, dude, I know that guy on IG. So he's a medical grower, but I'm just like, man, I remember bugging him to get on the show. Could you bug him to get on the show? And we follow each other now again. You know what I mean? I think he tuned out, and so it's like, man, it's cool to meet more cannabis folks who are willing to tell their story. You know, because it's important to me. Because I'm like, man, dude, my show is not about my story, you know what I mean? But anybody I'm hanging out with, if they ask, it's like, yo, this is what happened to me, and that's how it went, and that's why I'm into it. You know what I mean? But it's, dude, especially people, even if they're not that successful, like some of the breeder guys I have on my show are not like the most popular, you know, but breeding is an art, and it takes a lot of time and patience to create a new strain. And so I just dig talking to those guys too about their story.
Yeah, that's cool.
I just it's dope that you're promoting cannabis too in addition to entertainment, man.
I mean, they go hand in hand. Like you can't have one without the other. You know what I'm saying? So it makes sense to basically give both of them a platform at the same time. Like, why not?
Yeah, and that's one thing I want in the future. I want to be in a venue where there's live music, where I can smoke a blunt and drink my beer at the same time in a crowd of people who are doing the same thing, you know?
Man, yeah. I think there's,
That,
at least in Oregon, it's probably a little ways away. Like Portland still has some of the craziest liquor commission laws in the whole country. It's kind of nuts. And you know they run the marijuana industry also, so
yep, OLCC.
it's tough for sure.
Yeah. Um, so we still have like 15 minutes left. Is there a direction that you would like to take the interview and talk about anything in specific, or can I continue on in my random line of questioning? Like,
You
is
can
there
ramble.
anything?
I like rambling.
Okay, cool. So, can you tell us, like, dude, you've done so many shows and everything. You're like, it's almost like interviewing a rapper who's been on tour for years. You know what I mean? Because you were there too with all these. Can you tell us a couple of crazy stories? And then also, I wanted to ask you specifically if you want to tell this. Like, I'm a huge Nipsey Hussle fan. When he passed away, I was really bummed out because I really listened to his music to get to where I'm at. You know what I mean? I don't feel super successful or in a position to boast or anything, but I did. Like I came a long ways. I still have a long ways to go, but listening to that guy's music was really motivational and inspiring to me as an artist and an entrepreneur. And so I know that you've done at least one show, maybe more with him. So can you tell me any stories about Nip?
Man, Nip is such an enigma to everybody. I remember that time when he came out to Portland for the Smokers Club tour. I think that year he had just made the freshman list on double XL, and a lot of people
Freshman
still,
tab?
yeah, still people didn't really know who he was. Still, I think like he was slowly starting to like gain momentum. I
Yeah.
think people on the West
The-
Coast knew who he was, but like
yeah,
the
it
rest of
was
the country didn't.
I was in college in like '07, '08, and I sold weed to a bunch of cats on the football team that were from LA. And I remember like my girlfriend stayed with, you know, roommates with their girlfriends, and so we'd end up smoking and drinking at nighttime. And I pulled out it was on Coast to Coast, and it had Bullets Ain't Got No Names. And when I played that for them, like all of those guys looked like, what the fuck is this? Whereas like guys from LA, man, like Coast to Coast mixtapes, and they hadn't heard it before, and so I felt like they were like, yeah, man, vote for me if you want to DJ. You know what I mean? Like I'll come through and turn my function. But those guys, I remember telling them like, they ain't making stuff like this in New York, bro. You know what I mean? Like this is just some West Coast shit. You know what I mean? So everybody felt proud, you know. So
we
like
we try to book him in Portland a bunch of times, but I think because and Portland is such a weird city like that, and it's one of the many issues that we've encountered with just even trying to be a hip hop promotions company here, but it's they have like a very negative perception of the hip hop scene and
Yeah,
culture, right? And so
hard to
they
book shows all around the city, man. If
yeah,
you're
oh
if
for
you're
sure.
rapping,
And that's
yeah,
partially why, to be honest, like we have to pat ourselves on the back for being around for 10 years because it's not fair.
yes,
We've seen a
that's
lot of
it
companies come and
is.
go, you know what I'm saying? And we've been able to, stay on the radar and stay active, even though it's extremely difficult. Our dream is to own our own venue because part of the reason we never brought Nipsey to Portland is because a couple times venues tried to book him, the city shut it down. The city was like,
Yeah, because
no, you
it's
cannot bring him. He's gang related, blah, blah, blah.
yeah. It's a
And
lot of
so,
blue in Portland too, so you know what I mean. But
yeah,
that doesn't matter, man. It's
it
everybody. I feel
doesn't.
like everybody who comes to it. I don't think he had that many incidents. You know what I mean?
No, I mean, to be honest, we threw
I
a
feel
show
like
with
everybody's
Tyga.
pretty respectful.
We threw a show
Uh
with
huh.
Tyga, and after the Tyga show, so many fights outside. Like one dude got left like straight leaking on the pavement because after the show, people were like walking back to their cars. It was like a couple blocks away. There was like a huge fight. Dude got stomped out on the curb and left there. Like that had nothing to do with us. The show is over, but like, how can you look at an artist and say, "Oh, he's gonna bring a bad crowd"? He's not. When it's so
You don't
unpredictable.
know.
You never know. Once
Yeah,
people
you
get
don't know.
drunk, once
Yeah,
people get some weed or some liquor in their system or whatever, like it's uncontrollable. Like we have no say in what's going to happen. And so to blame an artist and say you can't bring him to
yeah,
town because he's going to start problems, like that's not fair.
yeah. I agree. I
But
agree.
but we were super
Okay.
bummed because we really wanted to continue to do work with Nipsey. We had one of our colleagues that we work with out of Dallas. He knew Nipsey pretty well, and he booked him for a bunch of stuff all over the country. And so he'd always be like, "Hey, let's book Nipsey in Portland. Let's bring Nipsey to Portland." And we were like, "Bro, we've already tried it. Like the venues won't mess with it because the city's gonna shut it down." So
What
that's why we were
did he
never.
squeak? Did he squeak through on the one though, where you guys had multiple people on there?
That
Like,
was
was that
early though.
early? That
Yeah,
was
because that was
early. Did you get
2010.
did you get to meet him then?
Backstage. I have a picture of it. I think I posted it on my social media after he passed. But yeah,
What was
super
that
cool.
like, man?
Just a cool, mellow, laid back guy. Super tall, like just tall, lanky, longest arms in the world. But he was just so chill. Like everybody else was doing the most, and he was just kind of to himself, just waiting for his turn to go up on stage. You know what I mean? Um,
Yeah,
so that was kind of cool. Um, and then we've had other shows where, like YG, for example, you know what I mean? Like YG, similar type of
yeah,
persona, LA. He's
yep,
super blooded out. He's telling all of his fans,
yep,
like on the flyer, to wear red to his show.
yeah,
So, like,
yeah,
if you want to talk about gang related, that's gang related. Like, Nipsey wasn't even doing all
yeah.
that.
No, and I'm not a YG hater, but I'm a super big Nip fan. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So like, just one of my son's moms, she's big on YG. She'd be like, "Did you hear the new one?" I was like, "Yeah, I listened to it. I wasn't that impressed." You know? She's like, "Well, why do you say?" I was like, I sent her the what was it Victory Lap, and I was like,
hmm
"Listen to this." She's
hmm
like, "That's the difference." You know what I mean? I'm
Yeah.
like, man,
Victory Lap is
you know?
such a great album. It's just so good. It's so well put together from beginning to end. I mean, and a lot of his mixtapes were, but like I feel like Victory Lap was really like putting the
Yeah,
crown on
it
it. You know
was.
what I mean?
Yeah, not just writing, but production too. You know what
Just
I mean? Like it was like,
the whole feeling that
yeah,
you get from listening to that project is different.
yeah, I agree. Well, that's dope. Thank you for answering that question. Can I
Yeah.
also ask about Amine? He's an
Yeah.
artist. He's an artist from Portland who's
hmm
recently blown up. To give a little bit of context, I want to tell the folks. I heard this kid was from Portland. He had the song Caroline that was heating up. It was playing on the radio. And then I saw that he had a show, and it was booked somewhere. I don't remember the venue, but it sold out. And so they're like, "We're moving it to a bigger venue," and it sold out. And then I think after that second one, like I figured out that it was you throwing the show. And so after the second one sold out, and it's like, we're moving it to the Roseland. I think the Roseland is where it happened, right? It's where it settled. And me and my lady at the time got tickets. So I was like, damn, we're going, you know? And I had your guys' name on the marquee too. I'm just like, fuck yeah. Like it felt official. And I think you even came on stage and introduced or something. Like I remember, I feel like I saw you like on the stage just for a second to introduce or something.
I don't think I introduced him. I'm trying to think. That was the first show. One thing I always do at all of our shows is I make sure that kids have water at the front, because those kids that are in the very front of the section at the concerts, they've been in line for hours. They get there, they get stuck in the front and can't get out to go pee, to go get water.
Yeah.
They are dehydrated. Girls are fainting. Like, it's so bad. And so every show we throw, I somehow end up in the front, in like the photography pit, like handing out waters to kids, pulling kids out myself so they can like be taken care of. And that's usually when people see me, because they're like, oh, there's the best down in the front being a nurse.
Yeah, I feel like I did see you at some point during the stage, but it was a super dope show. I think I saw one kid get kicked out, and it's like he was smoking a blunt at the edge of the crowd. It's like, bro, you got to be in the middle of the crowd to fucking fire up a blunt. You know what I mean? Like, what the fuck? You're stupid. I saw one kid get kicked out, but fuck him, he's dumb. You know, but it was super impressive. Like the show went off good, and he sang Novocaine from Frank Ocean, like as part of his intro. I was just like, dude, I fucking yeah, you know, like it was a super good time, and it felt good to spend money on a ticket that was an entertaining show, but also booked by a person that I had history with, you know. So it was just
thank you for coming.
Good vibes all around. It was a super dope time. Like, how did you meet him, and like how like, because I know he's really from Portland, you know what I mean?
He's
So
really from
it's like
Portland.
can you talk about his come up a little bit?
A lot of artists that are, popular in Portland, I shouldn't say a lot, a couple artists from Portland are not from Portland. They're from like LA or other cities. They come to Portland, they start to blow up a little bit, and then they go back to wherever they came from. But nah, I mean, is really like from Portland. Um, Known him since he was about 5 years old. He and my little sister were in the same grade in school, and so he used to like come to birthday parties and stuff like that. But I don't we didn't get close until he was in high school, because obviously like I was throwing concerts and stuff like that, and he was starting to get more serious about music. So we
Yeah.
actually put him on his very first show ever. At the time he was playing with a band, and they opened up for Pac Div. I don't know if you remember Pac Div. They were a group out of LA.
Got my Vans on, but they look like sneakers.
So that's the Pac. But this is called Pac Div. And so we put him on that show. It was super dope. And from then on, I just kept like supporting him, and like I would always hit him and just be like, "What's up? What are you working on?" You know what I mean? It was like a few times that he needed like a ride to the studio, or just things like that. So I was really just trying to help him out, because I saw a lot of potential in him, and I saw that he was taking music like pretty seriously. And I would say, in high school, any kid that's that focused and that driven and that talented, like they're special. You should definitely do what you can to help them. And so that's really what I wanted. I didn't want anything else out of that. But then when he went to college is when things really started taking off for him. He had just really done a great job at like networking with people in the industry. The music was getting better. He was constantly working on his music and getting better musically and better connected, etc. And it was through that, and I think also just building up his following like at Portland State and growing across the country. And then of course all the African kids love him to death.
Because are his parents are immigrants?
Yep.
Yeah, because that's he looked of culture, you know what I mean?
He's
I'm just like,
Ethiopian or Eritrean. I'm not
sure.
Oh
man, dude, that's time.
Yeah,
man,
but he's just
cool.
such a good person, and so now it just feels really good to like see that he's gotten to the point that he's at right now, because He is super talented. He's super creative. He's taken a lot of
Yeah.
risks with his music, and I think the people of Portland really appreciate him because he's been consistent. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and the video for that Caroline song too, that Big Kahuna Burger sponsored it or something, and
Hmm.
I just I don't even know the logistics of what they gave up it just the the co-branding, you know what I
Hmm.
mean, of their burger spot and this song. Like the song is banging. I went to the place afterwards to get a burger, and the burgers are good. You know what I mean? But
Hmm.
in the video too, it's like it's not even him. It's one of his little homies who's like dancing in the background. But like he has one of the burgers and he takes a huge bite, and it just like it's only for like 2 seconds, and it's like, dude, that's such good promotion. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? For both parties, it's almost comedic, but it's also like, nah, the food is fire, man. Come check
Yeah.
it out.
Yeah.
And just that song, like it's not super nasty, but it is. It's like youthful, you know, player type shit, and it just
Hmm.
I was just super impressed with it,
I
and
think that's
ha-
why
ha-
it blew up because it was so like
yeah,
cool and chill and laid back and relatable and just catchy, you know?
yeah, dude, like super, like the hook was on fire, man.
Hmm.
Like I tried to add him on Facebook. I'm gonna bug him to come on the show, but that guy's super popular. But it would be dope to interview him sometime too about his music because I am impressed, man.
Yeah.
You know, like it's tight. Um, that what else would you? Wait. Okay, so we're almost to an hour right now. Can you hang out for like 15 more minutes,
Yeah,
Beth? Is that
of
okay?
course.
Okay, cool. Okay, so I always forget to ask this question, and I remind myself every single episode, like, no, you gotta ask it. It's a two-sided question, and I try to ask it of everyone who's an artist or a business person. The first side is the good side. What do you feel? What do you feel has been your best move on the path to where you're at right now? And maybe it's
Mm.
not one singular move. Maybe it's one behavior, or one habit, or one thing that it's like if I hadn't have done this, like that was the best move. Like, can you talk about
Mm.
that?
What has been my best move on my path? You know, I I have a lot of skills, and I don't want to say this to sound cocky, but when you are an independent promoter or an independent or small business owner, you have to wear so many hats, right? Like you have to be able to do it all.
Hell yeah!
You got to be the bookkeeper,
Fuck
the
yeah!
marketing person, the photographer, the salesman,
I
all
got
that, right?
yeah. The
Um,
fucking host, the
Everything.
writer. Yeah,
Yeah.
like,
And so I had to learn a lot of skills really fast in order to kind of keep our business afloat in the beginning. So I had to learn how to do like digital strategy before digital strategy was a big thing, right? Like we were young business owners trying to figure out how do we promote our shows online? What is our brand like? What do we stand for? Like what is our messaging? So I was doing a lot of the marketing. I was doing a lot of the direct sales, like literally printing up tickets, taking in them and selling them to people at their home. You know what I'm saying? I was putting up the posters, I was handing out the flyers at the show. I was like at the front door making sure everybody got checked in. I was handling contracts. I was making sure people got paid. Like it was a lot. And although it's myself and my business partner Jacob, and I owe a lot of this stuff to him, I feel like because I'm such a hands-on person, I was doing a lot. And it took years for me to figure out that until I start delegating and trusting other people with some of these tasks, I'm not going to be able to grow my business. My business will
yeah,
continue to stay at the level that it's at because I don't know. I can't do all of the day-to-day tasks and also focus on big picture. And so
yeah,
it was then when I started to bring people onto our team that I could trust, that I could say, okay, you handle only marketing. Anything marketing goes to you. You handle only sales. Me and Jacob will focus on, he will network with artists, I will network with, venues or whatever, right? Like when we got to that point, then I felt like we started to get in a better rhythm, and that's when things started to really kind of fall into place for us.
dope.
And like I said, I know that's super tough, and no matter what industry you're in, or what type of business you have, it's your baby, right? Like your business is your baby, it's your
Yeah.
vision. So it's not easy to let go of any of that control, and it's not easy to let go of that creativity and all that. But as and my friend said this to me, and it really resonates with me to this day, but he said, as long as you continue to work in the business, you'll never be able to work on the business. And that I was
Yeah.
like mind blown, because
Dude.
it's so true.
Yeah.
If you're doing the
Dude, that's
tedious
good
tasks,
advice.
yeah, if
Really
you're
good
doing the
advice.
day-to-day stuff, you'll never be able to think long term. You'll never be able to be innovative. You'll never be able to take your business, regardless of what it is, to the next level. So you have to start to learn to delegate.
Yeah. Dope, dope. Good advice. Okay, so the other side of the question, the flip side of the coin, the the bad part is, what do you feel has been your biggest mistake or your biggest fuck up? You know what I mean?
Mm,
It's like, fuck, if I wouldn't have done that, fuck, I'd be much better off in a much less time. You know what I mean?
yeah. Um,
Because like I love talking about the wins, but the
mhm,
L's are relevant, dude. Like it
absolutely.
shapes character, and
Absolutely.
it's like the pain is invisible, but you can't hide the scars.
Man.
Jadakiss said that. You know
Ooh,
what I
that's a
mean? So
bar.
yeah,
I think one of the things, so like I said, being a small business, um, and having downtime and not having the type of business where every day you're making money. It's like we'll go a month without an event and then we have two huge events and we make a bunch of money. And then the next show that we throw, we lose half of that money because nobody buys tickets. And then the next
yeah,
month we make money again, right? So it's like it's such a fluctuation. We had to take out a couple of business loans to keep us afloat and to keep us operational because we needed to, stay relevant. And the thing about our industry is like, if you stop doing shows, it's not like your problems go away. You still owe people money, you still have bills to pay, etc. So we have to keep doing shows, but in order to do shows, you need money to get the shows booked.
yeah. Takes
So
money to make money, man.
hmm So we had to take out a couple of business loans, and I think we failed at doing our research really well as to exactly what we were signing up for because one loan in particular is like a very predatory loan, and those type of
Yeah,
people like they prey on small businesses that are in a crunch, and so they were taking out like $150 out of our account every day. That was their payment,
damn.
something ridiculous, right? And so it got
Yeah,
to the point where we were like, yo, it doesn't matter how much money we make, like we're losing it within weeks because these people are taking all of our fucking money. You know what I'm saying? And so
yeah,
we're still dealing with some of the legality of that. Like we've talked to like an attorney and we've talked to some accountants and some financial folks who have basically told us like this type of loan and this type of deal is kind of illegal. Like you guys should not have to pay this back because they're basically taking your future money that you haven't even made yet. And I guess that's like illegal to
yeah,
them. So I would say that's probably one of our biggest setbacks was just like when you get in a bad spot financially and you're trying to stay afloat as a small business, like regardless of how bad it is. And I know sometimes it feels like it's the end, you've hit rock bottom
yeah,
and you see an easy way out and you take it, but sometimes you don't think about what the consequences of that are going to be. And for us, like I said, we took one of those loans out years ago and we're still dealing with it today. Like they just called my phone today. You know what I'm saying? So I would just say
damn,
definitely like not doing that research and then jumping on opportunities like that. I wish we could have
dope.
done something different, but yeah.
Yeah, well, super, super honest answer, man, and good
Hmm.
advice for anybody who's getting into the business because I remember it was like a month or two ago. My guy Mitch, right there in production, he wrecked his rig, right, and it
Hmm.
was on Sunday night, and so we couldn't broadcast that night. I had to go post something on IG like fuck and then after I was like, man, are you gonna get an electric? He's like, nah, I'm not financing anything. He's like, fuck that. If I can't afford it, buy it outright.
Yeah.
And he's rolling like a Lincoln now, some super pimp. You know what I mean? He's balling in his new rig. You know what I mean? And I just
Exactly.
totally I dig his principles. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? Because he just like, no, I'm not gonna deal with any of that
Yeah.
paperwork. And
It sucks,
that's
man.
yeah, that's what reminds me
But
of
again, like as small businesses, like especially for entertainment industry, like there aren't always funds available because
Hell
entertainment is not
no.
a necessity, right? Like it's a
Or
little extra. And
nah.
so
Or for cannabis industry too. It's like you
mhm,
need capital to make that shit jump off. It
mhm.
doesn't matter if you got game. If you can't make it through that first year and pay
Whew,
everyone, you
yeah,
can't go rec.
bad. hmm
You know?
And so we, even now, like even through like COVID and the pandemic and stuff, there's been a lot of resources out there for, small businesses and different industries have gotten more money and more bailouts and stuff like that. But entertainment, like independent music venues just got money like in the last like 3 weeks or so, something finally passed to get some more relief going to these venues because think about it. If you were a small venue that holds, 300 to 400 people, you're probably already struggling. And then this hit,
Hell
and now
yeah.
you had to lay off all of your staff. You still have to pay lease on your building and on your equipment and your insurance, etc. And you have
Well,
no income.
dude, yeah, almost. I don't even care. I'll say small businesses, but most, even if you're a large business, if
hmm
you go 2 months with no fucking revenue
hmm
or half of the revenue that is on your spreadsheet for projections for the
hmm
year,
Oh yeah, you're in bad shape.
you're fucked. You're fucked.
And
Like you
think
got
about
to
it.
take a loan or you're going to go out of business. Like because your projections for the next year are complete. You don't have
They're off.
nobody. No, it's not there. Nobody's going to get what they want.
But
Nobody's,
also, you have to think
it's
about how people have been able to adapt. So, if you're a restaurant, when COVID happened, you were shut down for a little while and then you figured it out. Then you started doing takeout or delivery
yeah,
or curbside pickup, right? Same thing if you're a
yeah,
store, you just set up your online orders and then people could pick them up at the door and you'll just do curbside. For a music venue, like, what are you going to do? How are you going to
nothing.
make money?
You know what I
Because you
mean?
can't sell liquor, you
Nah,
can't sell your food, you can't throw
nobody's
concerts.
gonna be like, I need a T-shirt from the Hawthorne Theater, so I'm gonna go and
Nobody's gonna do
fucking
that, right?
curbside pick up that.
So
Yeah, nobody.
that was part of the problem, and that's why like this organization Save Our Stages was formed because it was a bunch of independent venues saying, "Hey, we need help, or once this is over, none of us are going to be able to open again," because they were in
Yeah,
in a bad position. And so thankfully, like I said, that finally passed. The government finally gave up some money to help support venues and whatnot. But I mean, the fight's not over. Like there's no plan as of right now for live entertainment to return. You know how they're making projections with like school and restaurants and malls, etc. Like they're rolling out things little by little. Like live entertainment is just like that's the last thing on their agenda. So
bottom of the list and
mhm,
shit. That
yeah.
sucks because I was so like I couldn't make it up here to Spokane in time to make it to the Tool show with my girlfriend before I moved here.
Mhm,
And then they did Spokane and then Portland and then that was it. The tour ended.
yeah.
But I was like super hopeful that I could see him in Tacoma in May. Nope. You know what I mean? Like they
Mhm,
canceled all their shows throughout the year, and it's just like, man, my guy Mitch, he made it to the Spokane show. You know what I mean? So
mhm,
like, I try to tell any of the homies who made it to Spokane or Portland for this last leg, I'm like, dude, you're blessed. Like that's my church. I fucking love that band, and it sucks to not look forward to something where it's like,
mhm,
oh, that's gonna be a good time. We bought
yeah.
the tickets. Everything's on that weekend. We're gonna fucking have a really awesome weekend.
Yeah.
It's that I got that the most from live music, and
Same.
I like my enjoyment now is like creating content. I get to do the podcast every week, and then I go and meet with my guys in the band down in Lewiston Lapway every couple weeks to record, and so that floats my boat. And then it just we don't know. It's like, dude, what if we create the most classic shit ever, and everybody's consuming it online, and
Yeah.
we can't go and perform it live.
Mhm.
And
It's
I try
so
not to think the
bad.
worst thoughts, but I try to prepare for the worst. You know what I mean?
Mhm. If you think about like big artists, like big mainstream artists like YG, for example, like they're killing it off the streams anyway. They're getting their royalty money. They'll set up some merch online and people will go crazy and buy it. But think about the small independent artists, the ones who are the opening acts for YG, right? The ones that maybe didn't
Yeah,
quite have like a record deal just yet, who made a lot of their money from touring and merch sales. Like those guys are hurting right now. And unless
hell
they
yeah.
have somehow found a way to, make money off of merch or somehow started promoting their music so they could get more streams. I don't know, but like those guys aren't making any money. And then to make it even worse, right? Think about when you go to a concert, you see between 5 to 20 people on stage at a show, right? Whether it's a band
Yeah.
or openers, DJs, whatever. But
Yep.
you see so many more staff at the venues, the people checking you in at the door, the people scanning your tickets, the security guards, the bartenders, the waitresses, the cooks, the
Yes.
stage hands,
It's
the light tech,
it's
the sound tech.
industry. Yeah.
As an
Yeah.
industry, the music, the
Yep.
live music venues employ so many people. And in addition to that being like their primary source of income, it's also their livelihood. Like people grow to become friends and family at these venues, and now they've been completely pulled away from that. And that really sucks for a lot of people that I've spoken to that are part of the music industry. They're like, man, like I almost feel like I'm depressed. Like I miss it so much. I just want to get back to it. You know what I'm saying? And it's true, man.
Yeah.
It sucks.
Yeah. I dig that you're shouting out all those people too. That's one reason why I like the band Tool so much. I've heard complaints from certain homies online like, oh, Maynard doesn't even get at the front of the stage and dance around or do any moves, and it's like, dude, the music is the main attraction, but the visual show on the screen and the beats and everything
Mhm.
is what's really going to entertain you. And I think it's dope of him to stand in the back next to the drummer because he can hear the most and it sounds the best coming through the sound system. Like, bro, their live show is so mic'd up, you don't need headphones
Mhm.
or I mean earplugs. It's like, nah, you're good. It's not. It's loud, but it's not so loud it's gonna blow your eardrums, man. Like it's good unless you're in the first 20 rows, I guess. But I've heard people complain about that, and then I've heard him in interviews say like, dude, our show is so much more than just the four guys on stage.
Mhm.
You know, like guys who created the video. A lot of those guys, I think, are there at the show cueing it. You know what I mean,
Mhm.
and playing it
Yeah.
on the screen. And then the guitar technicians, like you're saying, the people serving drinks, the
Yeah, man. It's a huge
security, everyone.
production.
It's like, dude, yeah, and it's like, yeah, they get paid a lot, but they pay a lot of their people too.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like it feeds everyone.
Yeah.
It's not just these guys balling out. It's like, no, this guy, you know, he still has a truck and a house and a couple
Mhm.
kids, and he's able to live because
Yeah.
we're popular and we're doing our shit, you know.
And they love to do what they do, right? Like people who are
Yeah,
roadies, like, okay, your job is to move drum sets on and off stage every night, but you love being on the road. You love seeing a new city every night. You love being with the homies on a tour bus, for 3 months straight. Like it's a lifestyle that is very addictive. And so when you take that away from people, you're taking away their livelihood. And unfortunately, as of right now, there's no safe way to bring back concerts in a way that's going to guarantee people's safety and health, right? So I understand why we're, kind of last on the to-do list, but at the same time, it's like, man, if anything, right now is a perfect time for entertainment somehow to be a distraction for people because we've been cooped up for a long
yeah,
time. You know what I'm saying? And once
hell
this
yeah,
nice weather is gone and we can't be outdoors, like going on hikes and
yeah,
shit, like what the hell are we gonna do?
yeah. Like I try to encourage more homies to create art and podcast and do whatever. It's like, dude, like talk about shit that you like, you know, because
Hmm.
even if you can't be in person with people, like because I'm an Instacart shopper, right? Like
Mm.
I've been doing the shit since it hit. You know what I mean? I'm just like, man, I'm fine. I didn't get sick. I'm cool. I'm not, super paranoid about anything. But I can tell when I see an old person at the store, they haven't talked to a human in 2 months,
Yeah, it's
and they
really sad.
really. It doesn't matter what you're talking. Like they just want to share a little bit about their day or their
Hmm.
story and have someone respond. And it's just like I recognize it. You know what I mean? And it's like fuck, I'll take your cart back to the thing.
Mm.
But it just, I could tell like humans need that interaction.
Oh,
And
for sure.
I feel like that's why music was so popular because it provided that, you know what I
Mm.
mean? And now it's strange times. And I hope everything works out. And cause fuck, dude, man, I want to buy another ticket to a cracking show, see your name on the
Yeah.
marquee. You know what I mean? Like that.
Can't
Because
wait.
I didn't get to go to the Travis Scott one. I've been really studying rock and roll for the past 10 years because that's what I'm trying to do. But when something's popular with rap or I'm DJing, I hear about it. And so it would just, I knew that guy was super popular at the time. And
Oh, he's
just
popping, popping.
the lines outside, I was just like, man, your name on the marquee. I was just like, man, that's dope, man. Like, Ibeth is the shit, man.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're at like an hour and 15 minutes. Is there any other before we wrap, is there any any ideas or messages you want to promote to the community at all or plans for the future, anything that you would like to share? And then also please share your social media, where people can follow you and
Yeah.
find you online because
Yeah, I mean, I would just, a message of like positivity and all this is that I think the beauty of the quarantine that we've been in is that people have either found new gifts and talents or they've had the time to go back and revisit old things that they used to do, hobbies, whatever. Like you said, now because you can't do music how you want to, you're creating content. Like that's so dope. Maybe this would have never happened on this level if it weren't for the quarantine, right? Like if we hadn't been
yeah,
forced to do something different, we would have still been doing the same thing. And so I would just encourage people to keep doing that. You know what I'm saying? Keep exploring your passions. That thing that you've been putting off forever, like go do it now. That book you've been wanting to read, man, read that shit. That movie you went to
yeah,
watch it. You know what I'm saying? Like I've been seeing a ton of like young people starting businesses, whether it's, making meals at home and selling them or braiding hair or a
yeah,
t-shirt line, whatever. Like it's a really great time for us to dig into those talents because once this is over, who knows when we'll have an opportunity to just slow down the way that we've been able to slow down right now. You know what I'm saying? And so I've gotten a
yeah,
lot more into like plants and meditation and crystals and just being like earthy and wellness and all that stuff. And I don't know that I would be doing that if my life was, going 10 miles a minute.
yeah. Yeah, we might not have got you on the podcast if you had a show coming up in the next couple of weeks, Beth. You know what I mean? You might not have responded to the message.
No, we would have
Like,
figured it
motherfucker,
out.
I'm too busy, fucker. You know what I mean? Like, fuck, I'll call you next month.
We would have figured it out.
No doubt. Well, dude, I gotta express my appreciation for you taking the time
Yeah, thank
and
you.
and
I appreciate
and
it.
letting us ask you questions on the podcast about your career and your path, man.
Man,
Because
anytime. Anytime.
it it is like I'm always a fan of the project if it speaks to me emotionally,
Mm,
But if that is the case, then I'm severely interested in the people behind the scenes,
mm.
you know? And so it's dope to be able to know one of those people and interview them and create some content. So thank you,
I
Ebeth, for
appreciate it.
coming on the
Thank
show.
you. And thank you for
Yeah,
doing this. This is super dope that you're giving, just regular people a platform to tell their stories. I think that's super important and we should do a lot more of that. So good job. Kudos to you and your producer.
no doubt. Thanks. And also the brown table discussions.
Oh yeah.
There's
I
only a few episodes, but I want to try and direct people towards that, and I want to encourage you to please pick that back up if you can't do it in the same place and time. I'm gonna ask
mm,
Mitchell for a standard operating procedures list on OBS, so because
yeah.
it is like you can do it remotely, and that's
Mm.
I can't tell you how Mitchell is the man. Like he's my
He's
guy.
the
So
yeah, he's making magic. Yeah, for sure. I used to co-host a podcast called Roundtable Discussions and we would basically talk about, politics, pop culture, um, things that kind of relate to the everyday brown person. And it was
yeah,
really dope. We had episodes on like on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, everywhere, and I think they just got pulled off of there like a couple months ago. But we had recently transitioned to like a video format where we were doing like a bunch of really cool video stuff and then like discussing it and whatnot. We had like really dope guests on there. So yeah, that was really fun. If you guys want to check it out, I think it's just Brown Table Discussions on Instagram and on YouTube.
It's on YouTube. Yeah, you can
Mhm.
find it. Like I got it bookmarked. I had a busy week and I didn't get to watch anything yet,
No,
but
it's all good. Take your time.
I'm gonna check it out.
And then my
And
personal
man,
Instagram is just Ebeth's alter ego, and that's the same for Twitter as well.
can you spell it out, please? There's no apostrophes. It's all lowercase.
No,
Can you please
Ebeth.
just say the letters out loud?
IBETHSALTEREGO. Ebeth's alter ego.
Ebeth's alter ego. No apostrophes.
Yeah.
All lowercase. All one word.
Yep.
Oh
Check
yeah.
us out.
So, yeah, man. Yeah. I because the brown table discussions, like I'm like, man, that's a super good idea because it is. We don't get coverage in the mainstream media, and in this day and time, people are looking for something else than what is in the mainstream media that speaks to them. So
for sure,
I want to encourage you and try and push you in that direction, Yvette.
Thank
Yvette,
you.
if I can.
Hey, I would love to bring it back. We need to figure out how to do it logistically, but I would love to.
Yeah. And then also, if you ever need anything from me, I'm not super popping to try and book any shows or anything, but any kind of questions or even if it's cannabis stuff, and please hit me up if you come to Spokane with the company you're working with now.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would love to.
Yeah, but really, thanks for coming on the show and sharing your stories with us, man. It means a lot. Super proud of the moves you've made, and
thank you.
You know, I'm super excited about the stuff you're gonna do in the future too. So
thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I'll be back
Thank you.
on the show to share more of that stuff as it starts happening.
that's man, for real. I want to invite you back too. And anytime you have something new coming out, it doesn't. If you want to come on here and promote it and sell it, anytime, like anytime.
I'm down. Let's do it.
Yeah, and with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna do my outro dance. This was the 71st episode of Concerned Dabs Podcast. I was your host, KDMK, and our guest tonight, ladies and gentlemen, Ibeth Hernandez, the owner of Chapters Alumni. She's made so many huge moves, thrown so many dope shows in the city of Portland and around the country. Super proud to be her friend and ask her questions about her career. Please follow her online, Ebeth's alter ego on Instagram and YouTube. So please check her out. I'm a fan of her work. I think you guys will be too. I also got to give a shout out. I got to give a shout out to my guys in production, Mitchell Wilson and Jesse Curry. This has been a Main Node and Joseph Street Enterprise production. Yeah. Hell yeah. Thanks, Ebeth.
For sure.
Man. Yeah. Like, that was dope, man.
That was fun. Thank you.